Hello, thank you for coming back and joining me here on the living room floor as always. Over the last few months now, I have been going through different areas from budgets to different supplier information, some stories from me, hints and tips for all these different areas. And I wanted in this week's video to bring it all together and kind of show you how to put together a wedding day timeline, a schedule of events on the day, whatever you want to call it, and how to actually make it all happen and give yourself enough time on the wedding day. Back when I ran a venue a few years ago, I used to sit down with my clients about 8 weeks before the wedding day, and they would come into my office really stressed, really worried, really nervous about everything. And without a doubt, every single one would tell me, we're not ready, we haven't got a clue what we're doing, we don't think we're very organised. And we'd spend about 2 hours kind of sat in the office going through things, working out the timeline, working out the order of the day. And they'd walk out my office at the end of it really chilled, really relaxed, and just really excited for their wedding day. And I realised that not everyone who is planning their wedding has this opportunity, and not everyone who is planning actually has someone who can advise them on these areas. And I really hate that people are sat at home worrying about this and just don't know how to put it all together. So I thought today I would share with you my tried and tested methods over the years, the way that I construct a wedding day timeline, and hopefully this leaves you feeling so much more relaxed and you're just going to get really excited to see how your wedding day is going to plan out. I use this method as a basis to start building all my events, and from there we tweak, we build on that, and we change it to suit the client's actual needs. So I hope you find this really interesting. If we haven't met before, my name is Beth and I'm a professional wedding planner here in the UK. And this channel is my little wedding world, where each week I get to share hints, tips, stories and secrets into the wedding industry to make sure that your wedding planning journey is that little bit easier and way less stressful. This timeline is based on a lot of the events that I normally organise, so you may be doing something totally different, and I'm not saying this is the only way to do this. Most of the timings on a wedding day will stem from what time your ceremony is, so I'm going to base this rather than hour by hour. I'm going to talk about it in hours and minutes rather than 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, because everyone is going to be so different. You can apply this to your own wedding day and it really relaxes you into knowing that you've got everything under control and you're feeling so much more organised. So let's get on with this. The morning is going to be a lot more loose, and generally it's going to kind of set around what your hair and makeup situation is, how many people you've got getting ready. Some people choose to do an activity on the wedding morning. Maybe you're going to have some breakfast or some food. You've got different areas you're going to be travelling in to maybe go and get ready in one place, then move to another. So you're going to want to talk to your hair and makeup team or work out amongst yourselves what you actually need to do and what you need to fit in during the wedding morning. What I would always advise is you're actually fully ready at least an hour before the ceremony. This gives you time for any touch-ups, time for some photographs, time to kind of relax, compose yourself before the ceremony, and then allocate your travelling time in before the ceremony actually starts. As with everything on wedding days, they have a tendency to run behind, so by allocating an hour, you've got time if things do go wrong or things take a little bit longer than you thought, that you've got this time built in and you're not going to feel so rushed before the ceremony. Equally, if you're having a ceremony with a registrar at your wedding venue or a registry office, then they will want to see you up to half an hour before the ceremony and have a meeting with you to go through all the legal aspects. So you'll definitely want to be ready for that rather than rushing around trying to get your dress on, trying to get your makeup finished and then try and see them. You don't want to leave yourself feeling too busy, so make sure you have this time and don't stress out. I've been speaking a lot about the trends of first looks recently, and if you haven't heard of this before or you haven't seen the video, check this link out. I've posted it below for you as well. If you're having a first look, you're going to want to allocate a little bit more time, and this will depend whether you're going to go and do a simple first look, just you as the couple, you want to do some couple photos before the ceremony, or you want to do all your full family shots before the ceremony as well. If you are planning on doing this, please try and allow about 2.5 hours before the ceremony. Be ready at that point and give yourself those 2.5 hours to get the pictures done. Remember to allocate the time to travel to your ceremony as well if you do need that. Moving on then, we have your wedding ceremony, and the time is going to vary depending on what you've got planned and whether it's a registry office ceremony or it's more of a religious ceremony. Registry offices can last as little as 15 minutes. Usually I'd say most common is about half an hour for a ceremony at a venue or a normal registry office ceremony. And then religious ceremonies can go on 45 minutes up to an hour, sometimes even an hour and a half or longer. So you'll definitely want to chat to the person that's holding your ceremony to find out how long they plan on it lasting and all the little things that you're going to want to include. Of course, there are so many different traditions and cultures when it comes into weddings in the UK. I'm only basing this off ones that I work with, so definitely check your own situation and see what they come up with, and they'll let you know how long things will take. Following the ceremony, you're probably going to want to move into some photos, and at this point I always say get your big group photos done straight after the ceremony and before you let people go off for drinks. If you let people go off for drinks first, you will spend so long trying to drag everyone away from drinks and canapes, find them when they run off to the toilet or they've gone for a little wander around your venue, and it's nigh on impossible to get everyone back together. So what I always suggest is straight after your ceremony, move into having your confetti photo, as this is a really nice picture and the first thing you kind of want to get done if you plan on doing it, and then move into your big group photos. Get everyone taken together whilst they're in one place. You can do it really nice and quickly, and then let everyone head off to the drinks and canapes and relax and start enjoying your wedding. At that point then you can choose to do your smaller family photos, have someone who's going to run around and grab everyone for you, and then move into your couples photos as well. This means the rest of your guests can get on with the wedding and enjoy mingling, and then you can go and join them as quick as you can afterwards. For the time between the ceremony and when you sit down for your food, so that's going to be those group photos I just talked about, your photos and the drinks reception, I usually allow about 2 hours at this point in the day. And a lot of people try and rush through this part. They say we're getting our food in another room and it's already going to be set up, so we're only going to allocate an hour and we're going to go straight in, or we want to cut down on this time because we want to get to the food and we don't want to do much at this point. I would always recommend try and allow a minimum of an hour and a half, and if you can, 2 hours. The photographer usually has a lot of work to do at this point to get all those photos done for you, and actually if you cut that time down, you as a couple aren't going to be there enjoying those drinks with your guests, who are the people that you invited and you want to be with. So make sure you give yourself this time, don't try and rush through the day, and get some time to spend with your guests. After your drinks reception, it's normal to move into kind of the food and speeches portion of the day. And for this point in the day, I usually allow about 2.5 hours. Seems a long time, but there's an awful lot to fit into this point. I always say as well, try and start seating your guests about 15 minutes before the meal is due to start. It takes so long to move people, especially if you've got a lot of tables. They're going to want to look around, they're going to want to get drinks from the bar before they take their seats. Just give yourself a time at this point so you don't feel like you're being really rushed. Once you all get to your places at the table, the next decision you're going to be making on your timeline is when you do your speeches. There are so many different ways to do it, and this, in my opinion, is the reasons for doing it at different times. The 3 kind of standard ways to do your speeches are before the meal, after the meal, or in between the courses. Personally, I always advise doing them after the meal. By this point in the day, your guests are really hungry. They just want to get to their table, sit down and eat. They're not that bothered about listening to speeches, and they just want to kind of get on with things. So what I advise is you keep them at the end of the meal, let your guests sit down, enjoy the food, have a few drinks. They're going to be really full at the end of that and really want to sit there and just listen to people talk. The only reason I would usually suggest doing them at the beginning of the meal is because you may have some really nervous speakers, and if they're nervous, the last thing you want to do is make them sit through the entire meal, ruin their meal because they're so nervous, and just worry about it the whole time. In that case, get them done before the meal, get the stress out of the way, and let everyone really enjoy their meal. The other option that people normally look to go for is to split the speeches throughout the meal. Now, from a catering point of view, this is an absolute nightmare because we don't know how long speeches are going to last. Even if someone says my speech is only going to be 2 minutes, guaranteed they'll take 10 minutes. We've then got to hold the food in the oven for that little bit longer, and it's not going to come out as best. So unless there's a real reason you want to split them, I would usually advise put them at the end or in the beginning if you really can't kind of imagine putting people through the stress throughout the meal. But that's my suggestions with speeches, and I hope that helps in making some decisions for you. All in all, this part of the day is going to be around 2.5 hours, and that is for the standard kind of 3 speeches, father, the bridegroom and best man, and does include a usual 3-course meal. If you've got less food or you've got more speeches, adjust the time accordingly, but in my experience, no matter what people do, it usually takes about this time. Moving on, the usual next step is going into the evening entertainment portion of the day and your evening guests arriving, if that's what you've got. A lot of people ask, when do I start to invite evening guests and what do I put on the invitations? I usually suggest allow kind of an hour between the end of the food and the speeches and when you tell the evening guests to arrive. That kind of works well for if things are running a little bit behind, they're not going to turn up as you're doing speeches or finishing food, which can be a bit of an awkward time for people to turn up. And it gives us time if we're changing rooms around or there's bands, DJs arriving, anything like that, to get into the building and start getting set up before more people come in and maybe block access or it gets a little bit crowded. So we've got your evening guests arriving about an hour after your food and speeches, and then I would usually suggest that your entertainment and evening activities kick off about an hour and a half after your speeches and food are finished, just to give that time to set up and for you to kind of relax and enjoy being at your venue. You don't want to be rushing that portion of the day. With starting evening entertainment, I would also look into sunset and when your sun is going down and when you're going to be having golden hour, as this is a great point in the day to get photos with your photographer and often bring some of the nicest light and romantic photos. So check with this, and if it is around that time, maybe delay the evening activities till a little bit later so you can get those shots, and it's also much easier to get everyone inside and dancing once the sun has gone down. Okay, let's get into the evening activities. This is how I tend to run my evenings, and I have found that it works really, really well. I usually suggest to start with cake cutting. So say your evening entertainment is going to be kicking off at 8 o'clock. I would suggest to the couple that they bring everyone in to where the dance floor is, where your cake will be, kind of center stage. Get everyone around to have the cake cutting. Staff will then remove the cake. You can then get straight on with your first dance whilst everyone's in one place, and then straight after the first dance, kick off with your evening entertainment. Of course, you might not be doing all these things, but I find that if you are doing all these, doing them at different points of the day can feel really disjointed, and you kind of have to keep moving big groups of people to different places. So by doing it all in one go, it kicks your party off really well and kicks it off with a big bang. The other thing to mention would be evening food. If you plan on having it, I would always suggest that you give the evening entertainment at least an hour to get going. If you've got a band playing, that'll probably be their first set, or if you've got a DJ, give that good hour. DJs, bands, entertainment, they work really hard to kind of build up an atmosphere on the dance floor. The last thing you want to do is let them get started for 20 minutes and cut it off again, get everyone off for food, and then the DJ has to work really hard to get everyone back in the mood again. So give yourself a good hour, have that hour's break then for people to go and get food, refresh and enjoy, kind of chatting amongst themselves again, and then you can kick back off with the second set about an hour later. If you have a band rather than a DJ for your evening entertainment, I would usually suggest that between sets they put on some background music. This just keeps some sort of atmosphere going and encourages people to keep dancing rather than just emptying the dance floor and then trying to get everyone back in again. That's just something that I found works really well in the past, and if you have got a band, then I suggest you have this conversation with them and see if they include it in their services. So that's kind of it. It's not as complicated as people think, but if you've never done it before, I know it can be a real daunting process to work out how to fit everything together and how long things take. So I really hope that's given you some great ideas. Most venues in the UK will kind of have a midnight 1 AM cutoff. Some venues are all night, so you don't have to set a time, but I would just let your guests know to book their taxis and travel home at a kind of reasonable hour, usually 1 o'clock. As I said, this is a really general plan, so you may want to lengthen some areas, cut down in others, do what's right for you. It's your wedding, so make your own plans and work out what works best for your ideas. I'm going to leave it there today, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit the thumbs up button for me and drop a comment below if you've got any questions I can help answering. I love to hear from you all. And as always, if you are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and turn the bell notification on for all future video notifications. I will leave it there. Have a wonderful day or evening, whatever you are doing. Speak soon. Bye.